Starting and scaling a wholesale real estate business can be a daunting task. I know, it's what gave me a lopsided beard that I still haven't recovered from. You want to get rich or die trying? It's a hustle that only the relentless survive. I met a guy very recently with a great attitude about tackling the work and is willing to share wisdom around the subject. Now, right there, I know that this guy has a lot figured out because he's a go-giver. When you start out in real estate, you can become a wholesaler, a retailer, aka real estate agent, or you can become an investor buyer. Jake Burhans decided to do all three at once. That's crazy. But eventually, he decided to dial it in on wholesaling and is now rapidly adding members to his acquisitions team. He just moved to Florida, is currently racking up a lot of transactions, buying in multiple markets, and shares some easy-to-use tips for getting the most out of those first conversations because it can be daunting. And like he says, you're just one call away from that $1 million opportunity. You're going to love Jake, his wisdom, and the community he's building at Optimize REI. He's smart, inspiring, I love his energy, and he's willing to share wisdom, which is my kind of guy. I hope you enjoy this podcast, and hey, today's the day. Right now, I think that maybe you will hit that like and subscribe button. I know it's just a little bit of work, but it really does help us. It helps those algorithms that help push our content out to more people, that ensures that we're continuing to deliver content to you and that you don't miss an episode. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed this episode with Jake. I really enjoyed having this conversation with him. Cool. It seems like LinkedIn is pretty potent. It seems like a place to really get some great traction. You know, Facebook seems like a place where you go to just throw things that go away into a deep void, but LinkedIn is a little bit interactive.
100%. And I didn't even really, my team had suggested, like, yeah, you really got to get on LinkedIn. And I was like, all right. I always had a profile, but I never really used it to like really proactively reach out to people.
Right. Yeah. I'm finding more and more that it's definitely worth the time on there. And where are you hailing from?
St. Petersburg, Florida.
St. Petersburg, Florida. Wow. I know a lot of people that love St. Pete's, and it's just a great place. So tell me about the real estate market in St. Pete.
I mean, it's popping. It's definitely competitive, but we're all direct to seller off market. So we're finding things, but yeah, I'm not too focused on the retail market in terms of like listings and realtors. I'm not too familiar with that, but I do know direct to seller, there are deals if you put in the work.
Yeah. I mean, even wholesalers, retailers, investors, everybody kind of has to, we all kind of flow along the same tide, you know? And so just curious what it's like down there. Everybody that I've talked to still says that the Florida market is pretty hot, but some say it's slowed down a little bit. So what's your experience been?
Well, I've been here for about 3 months in the market, and it's been hot ever since I've been here. So I guess I don't really have anything to compare it to previously, but I think it's been great compared to the New Hampshire market that I was in before.
Okay. Were you investing in New Hampshire when you were up there?
Yeah, we have about 15 multifamily units up there. We don't have anything down here though.
Okay. So you're an investor in multiple markets. So give me a little bit of a kind of what's your experience and how does one market compare to another? Like when you decided to start doing deals in another market, what were some new things you had to kind of prepare for?
Not much, to be honest. It really doesn't really change other than the fact you need to have the personnel there to go out and see the property, things like that. Make sure you're up to code with the regulations and things like that. But it's really not anything different. I'm just the acquisitions guy. So I'm reaching out to a seller, having a conversation, whether that's in Florida, Las Vegas, or New Hampshire. It really doesn't make a difference for me. But from a business perspective, regulations, right? Laws, things like that.
Sure. Yeah. Each state is different from, contractually from state to state, but the mechanics are the same, you're saying.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's good for people that are getting ready to kind of expand a little bit. If you are a real estate professional in the short-term rental industry and are tired of inaccurate data, underwriting, or simply uncertain about the changes in your market, then you need to know that just like the changes that occurred in the auto industry a few years ago, the availability of information is making your customers smarter than you. They are searching for accurate data to make good buying decisions, and now you can give them the data that they want for free when you subscribe to InvestGR by Worley, a new data platform by real estate pros for real estate pros. The only way to stay ahead of the curve and to prove your value is to become a data-backed agent with InvestGR by Worley, the only B2B solution for real estate professionals in the short-term rental space. InvestGR by Worley can be white-labeled with your logo so that you can brand your expertise while you privatize every lead. Worley has data scientists on staff and scrubs the data so that you can be sure you are making clean decisions with good underwriting rather than scraped piles of trash, which frankly is your only other option. Cocktails and Dreams wants to support your new way of selling that's both cutting edge and more accurate. You no longer have to hope that you are making the right decisions because you can be certain that Worley is the gold standard in the STR data industry. And to prove it to you, we're going to give you a 30-day money-back guarantee to the software, and we're going to coach you to get even better results that I had when I launched my business. And after 17 years in the STR industry, this is the best that I've seen yet. And I'll be there to personally help coach you to where you want to go. Click the link in the show description for a quick trip to register for a free demo, and we'll see you there. And I'd love to hear about your business, but before we do, I kind of want to know about you a little bit. So give me a little bit of your background and how you got into real estate investing, because it sounds like that you were kind of headed towards one path and then you kind of veered directions, maybe.
Yeah. So we started out doing a bunch of things at first, right? We were doing, we were realtors, we were wholesaling, and we were buying property.
All at the same time.
All at the same time. So we're
Wow.
like, hey, you know what? We can do all these things. Yeah, we got it, man. We're going to crush it.
Yeah.
Can't do them all. You got to pick one, right? So we started out doing all three of those things, and slowly we've whittled it down to just wholesaling. So in Florida, we're doing predominantly just wholesale transactions, which for anyone who's not familiar with wholesaling, I like to think of it as the acquisition side for all the fix and flippers out there, right? Because they don't want to cold call. They don't want to do that, do those things, and get yelled at on the phone all day. So we go find the deals. We lock them up. Say, for example, we locked up a deal at $100,000, meaning we're in a purchase and sale with a seller. Say the property could be worth 250,000, but it might need a ton of work, right? So we might sell that purchase contract to a fix and flipper for $110,000, and we would just make a little spread. So pretty much a fee for finding the property, going out and doing the legwork, and then our fix and flip partners will actually swing the hammer and complete the project. So that's wholesaling more or less. It's very transactional. It's really just a sales and marketing business. Real estate is the product. And that's why that was one of the main reasons we went to Florida, was for the wholesale side of it, right? New Hampshire is great. New Hampshire and Florida are kind of similar in terms of like tax perspective, right? No income tax, things like that. But New Hampshire is a very landlord friendly state, so we own property there. But we really put that on hold for now, because we're looking at the wholesale business as something that we're going to automate over the next 2 years, right? And we're going to try to turn this into a cash flowing asset. So by the end of 2025, if we're completely out of this, and what Alex Ramosi says, nose in, hands out, right? Just kind of maybe 2 to 5 hours a week giving our input, we can use that cash flow to go back into multifamily and start to build up our portfolio. So that's kind of the biggest reason that we went from New Hampshire to Florida market. But Florida is also a great area to buy property in. That's one of the best things about building a wholesale business, is a lot of those relationships and contacts are transferable for later on down your career, right? When you want to buy and hold property, you have the attorneys and the title companies and all the property managers and all those contacts already in place. You're just doing a different thing. And at the end of the day, wholesaling is just an exit strategy, right? It's really the source of the art of finding off-market deals, right? Because once you have a deal, there's three things you could do. You can hold it, right? You could fix and flip it yourself, or you could just assign the contract to another investor, right?
So you said you started off wholesaling, you started off, as a real estate agent and then as an investor, and then you slowly kind of whittled it down to just wholesaling. So in my experience, I've done the exact same thing. I was also doing all three at the same time, except I chose the real estate agent pathway. And what's interesting is that you have a real juxtaposition of business models there. With the wholesaler position, your job is to get that property from that seller at the lowest price possible. Yes, you still want to go in and have a win-win. Yes, even though you're really giving that seller a low investor price for it, you're solving their problem because you're allowing them to liquidate the asset fast. Where in the real estate scenario, you're actually a fiduciary and you are bound by law to get that seller more for them than you would for yourself. So it's difficult to go in and be a retailer and a wholesaler, because as that retailer, you have to get them the most, but as the wholesaler, you have to get them, you're trying to get it for the least. So how did you handle that when you were in the in-between phase?
Yeah. So in the in-between phase, it's just all disclosures. You can do it, and a lot of people do it. You just have to be very clear about like, hey, I have my investor hat on right now. I'm coming in as an investor. I'm a principal in this transaction. I am not a realtor. I'm not representing them. I'm here to buy for myself. So I think it's really being transparent in the disclosures, and it can be tough because a lot of brokerages are not open to that.
Right.
So there's definitely plenty of investor friendly brokerages. But if you want to be a realtor and a wholesaler, it's definitely finding a good brokerage that understands that. But furthermore on that, I don't think it's terrible to have both though, because I think it's honestly, you would be surprised though. You'd be surprised how many sellers will go with that cash offer, even when you think they're going to want to list it. Yeah, I'd rather just do it. I know I can get more. I'd rather just take the cash. So it's almost, you could look at it in a way as like it's almost is a fiduciary to present those different options, right?
I
And even
agree.
if you're not a wholesaler, understanding that route for the seller, right? And having people who do that or cash buyers to present that option. Because you can be like, hey, here are the options, right? We can fix it up and you can get this price, right? Or you can sell it today at this price. I have an investor over here, right? What would you like to do, right? And presenting the options. So one way to look at it.
I agree. I always thought I was providing an extra level of service by having that network that you were talking about in the beginning, right? Being able to show up at a RIA group or have an email list of ready to go investor buyers that maybe won't get that seller the price they want for it, but to hang that option on the Christmas tree and say, hey, there's an ornament you can pick up anytime you want. And we're going to do our best to retail this baby. We're going to get you this. Here's our marketing plan. This is the plan. But at any time, if you, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, want me to take that to the wholesale option and you want me to present this to investors, just keep in mind you're not going to get the higher price that you want, but you direct me. You tell me what you want because what's more important to you, time or money, right? So we can take the time, we can get you the most. There's a buyer out there. It may take time, but we'll find it. Or if money's more important to you because you have to get to your grandkids in Arizona, then let's just go see if we can get you a cash offer and get this thing out. And yeah, in that case, maybe there was a pre-negotiation of a commission or something like that. So I agree. I always tried to do both, and we found some great deals. And in some cases, we picked up some great deals for ourselves too, just because people were like, "Hey, do you want to buy this?" Yeah, sure, absolutely.
I think the best analogy, because a lot of times people just don't understand that price is not the most important things for some people, right? Now, it is a very small percentage of the market. It's probably 5% of people looking to sell their house is going to be like a wholesale deal, right? But I always use the analogy of you're driving down the road, you want to get a bottle of water. You stop at the gas station, you pay $3 for one bottle of water. You know dang well you could go to the grocery store, you get a package of 24, and that might be 30 cents a bottle, right? But you choose the speed and convenience of stopping at the corner store, and you're willing to pay more for the water. So it's kind of the same thing with real estate. They know they can get more money, but they're choosing the speed and convenience and willing to sell it at a discount because of the problems, right? And we're also not getting something for nothing, right? We're going above and beyond in a lot of these situations and solving other problems. Like we had a seller in Manchester, New Hampshire. We ended up paying for his moving costs, getting him all the way down to Texas, right? So it's the other things that people don't see besides the price that we're paying, right? It's the problems that we're solving that we're providing to them. They're saying, hey, if you can solve these problems, I'm willing to agree to this price because the value of these problems solved is equal to this price that you're giving me, right? So I'm willing to do that. So I think that's an important thing to understand is the problem solved.
I agree. In those cases, it's really just factual and it's just an opportunity that you're presenting. So how do you deal with some of the emotion that creeps in on sellers when you're just trying to go in and make an offer for their convenience and then they kind of get emotional with you? How do you handle some of those conversations?
Yeah, I mean, it's an emotional thing. I think in wholesaling, you have acquisitions and dispositions, right? My partner does dispositions. That's more cold hearted. It's just investors, and you can play kind of cutthroat on that end. On the seller side, you have to be more empathetic, right? Understand their situation. And because us, it's like we do this every day, but for a lot of people, this is like the biggest sale of their life, right? I mean, it's their house. So this is no small thing. It's not like we're trading baseball cards here.
Yeah, they raised
Um,
children in that house, right? I mean,
mhm.
they've had a lot of memories in that house, and we forget that even as real estate agents with sellers because it's like you said, it's just so transactional that we forget that this is actually emotional and sort of a transactional thing for them.
Yeah. So I think, but ultimately to answer your question, how do you handle that comes down to your process for speaking with sellers, right? AKA, what is your sales process, right? I like to think of sales as just a way to communicate with sellers, right? Getting them to make a decision, whether it's selling the house or not selling the house, and trying to address all of their needs, right? So we have a sales process that's going to go through all these things like their reason for selling, right? What needs to be met, their timeline, their price, right? How much they need, why do they need that amount? Who are the decision makers involved? So all of those things are going to help us effectively communicate with the seller and work through kind of those emotional points.
Do you guys have people on your team that that are VAs that are calling FISBOs and things like that to try to set meetings for you guys?
Yeah, we're actively scaling that out right now. So we have 3 cold callers who are calling just absentee owner data. So absentee owner data is I own 123 Main Street. I live in 123 Main Street. I have another property at 145 Birchwood Ave, right? I do not live in that property. My mail doesn't go there. So it's an absentee house for me. The
Hmm.
people we're targeting with that is tired landlords. Hey, I've owned it for 15 years, don't want to sell it. Because think about it, in this market with interest rates at 7, almost, I don't even know where they're at now, but 6, high sixes, 7%, what's more likely? What's a more likely sale? A rental that someone's had for 15 years or the house they live in where they now need to go find another property at a higher interest rate, right? Most
Yeah, or
likely the
as
rental.
yeah, as especially as credit, starts to creep up because people are trying to live with the same lifestyle with less income, they're having to liquidate assets to pay for that as well.
We keep it very broad. Absentee owner, and this is going again into scaling, kind of why I went into solely wholesaling, is just getting as laser focused as you can, right? Simple scales, fancy fails. So we only pull one type of list under $500,000 estimated value, absentee owner, not on the market, 25 to 100% equity. Doesn't matter what city we're in, that's what we're pulling, right? No land other than just like has to be a lot, no like tracts of land. We're keeping it very simple, and they're calling those leads. And then we have one lead follow-up manager who is going to, I guess, kind of explain the acquisition side is going to help people understand. So lead generation, reaching out to that broad list of people, anyone who raises their hand says, hey, I have a reason to sell. Reason can't be what's your offer, not a real reason, but they're moving, retiring, foreclosure, maybe it's a more motivated reason. That's going to get pushed to the CRM where all of our leads live, right? Our lead follow-up manager is going to qualify those leads, right? A lot of them might just be messing around. Who has a real reason to sell and what is their timeline? Keyword is timeline here. If they're within 90 days from making a decision to do something, that's going to get kicked up to acquisitions, right? It's going to be appointment set for acquisitions. If they're 90 plus days, it's going to be a follow-up for lead manager until they are within that 90-day time frame. And as you're scaling up the acquisition side, you start wearing all the hats, right? And it's tough. It sucks. So you're doing all the things, but slowly you start to hire these positions out and you're getting to a higher dollar per hour task every single time. So right now I'm in the closing seat, but over the next few weeks here, I'm looking to hire my first closer. And that's going to get me to the highest dollar per hour task on the acquisition side, which is the sales manager, right? And that's effectively just being a leader. How can I get everyone to their highest point of contribution on this team? How can I get them operating at the most optimal level? And that's being a leader and getting them to do what you need them to do. So interesting as you scale up how you work up.
So what answers are you finding to those questions? Because those are great questions. And how are you helping yourself scale?
So yeah, I've now realized that it, like I said, it's more about leadership. So learning about leadership, I don't know anything about it. So I'm reading a book right now called Multipliers by Liz Weissman. Very, very good book, but it's about multiplying the intelligence of the people that you already have, right? Instead of just getting more headcount, maybe everyone's operating at 50%, right? Because of your leadership style. Instead of just going and get more headcount, why don't you get 100% out of the people you have? So it's through different tactics and ways of leading that you're able to do that. So I think the answer to that question is continuing to read and learn and test out different strategies to see how my team responds to it and what's most effective for them, you know?
Absolutely. In my experience, I found that when you begin to teach leadership, you get multiplication faster. Because when I was asking a guy named John Houston, he's one of the fifth largest home builders in America. He's in the Dallas area. And I asked him, I had a chance to go on kind of a leadership retreat with him. And I asked him, I said, how do you manage standards as you scale? And he said, well, I just hired somebody who was better than me at the job. And there's a lot of truth to that because really at that point, his job becomes leadership. His job becomes to support the leaders, to have the best person, on the job that is going to manage standards as they scale. And what I found is that when I ask people to be the CEO of their own position and incentivize them to do so, you get the results you're looking for. And so I think you're on the right path with leadership there because it's how you get multiplication fast. Are you experiencing that?
Yeah, absolutely. And being able to give people decision-making ability. Obviously, we're still going to collaborate, but man, it takes so much weight off of me to be like, hey, here's the problem. How can we come to it together? Instead of feeling like I need to be the smart one in the room and I need to always have the answers. Why don't we lay out the solution, lay down a challenge, and see how we can get there together, right? Because by
Yeah.
me just telling them what to do every single time, I'm not tapping into their intelligence. There's so many, everyone is intelligent in their own way, right? So it's about tapping into that and seeing what they can bring to the table. Like I was just talking to my lead manager this morning, trying to figure out how we can get lead generation to produce more leads per person. And she had some phenomenal reasonings by simply me just asking, hey, how can we, this is what I'm trying to do. I'm trying to get everyone's at 2 to 3 leads per day. I want to get them up to 4 to 5. I know when you were a cold caller, you were doing that. So I know it's possible. How can we do that? She started to work back. Okay, this is what I was doing. Da, 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 da. By the end of it, we had three action items we were going to go implement for the lead generation department to get them up. But if I had just gone in there and said, this is what I think we need to do, go in there and tell them to do this, we would have never came to that conclusion, right? I allowed her to present ideas and to actually try them.
That's great. So we've got you now running a business that's growing and scaling. You're looking for multiplication. You're teaching leadership. But where did you start? It seems like you kind of made a shift around college. You were getting ready to go and become a CPA, or maybe you were studying, you were having some finance education, and then all of a sudden things kind of came to a screeching pivot point for you. Can you describe like where you were in life and kind of how all that happened?
Well, it starts with hockey, right? I was a very dedicated hockey player my entire life, always the goal to go to the NHL. And I played year round till I was about 19 years old. I'm 25 now, but year round, only thing I played. And I was very committed to that, right? That's what everything my life revolved around. So when that ended, kind of due to an injury, more or less, I was very lost for a year because everything I had been doing in my life up to that point was for that purpose, right? So now I was like, okay, what the heck do I do now? So I go into college freshman year and really just didn't know what I was doing, kind of probably not doing the right things in general, just to be on track. And then I read Rich Dad Poor Dad, which is the classic cliche thing, read Rich Dad Poor Dad, but
It's
there's
helped a
also
lot of
around like
people.
it has. It has. And I always like to say it either clicks for people or it doesn't, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you give it to someone, they're either like, oh, that's great. Or they're like, oh my gosh, Rich Dad Poor Dad.
right.
So that was me, the latter. Yeah, that clicked for me. And then I started that was like, okay, this is my new thing that I can put all my time and energy into and dedicate and focus and do all the things. So that's kind of how I switched. And at that time, I was going into my junior year of college. I had a really heavy workload. I was double major finance and accounting. And because I was always like tried to be like an overachiever, I guess, like try to do all the things, which is why I loaded my class schedule so heavy with finance and accounting because I was trying to go get the best corporate job that I could.
Yeah.
But then I realized like, is this really what I want to do? And I just got so infatuated with real estate that we kind of took off from there. And it's kind of like a divine thing. But my now business partner lived across the hall freshman year in college from me. And we had never really been friends. Like we knew each other, but until junior year. And then I started like being an intern for him because he was learning under another guy, Axel, who owns like hundreds and hundreds of units. And then we just both started working and we started wholesaling that summer, junior year. And since then, I really haven't like had an hourly job, but it was tough getting started, even in college, right? Switching from that hourly mindset to commission mindset, like getting started probably until about a year ago, to be honest. I probably went down to zero in my bank account like 4 or 5 times. And by divine luck, like I would have a deal hitting right at that point. Right. So I know what it's like to just have no money and just be like stressed out trying to get the business working. I don't necessarily recommend that. You can always keep doing your full-time job if you want to get into real estate and build it up on the side till your income's equal to your salary and then you get out. That's a smart way to do it.
So you
But yeah,
mentioned divine uh, twice. Once with the person in your life across the hall, and once with something showing up at the right time. So what's that experience been like for you?
it's an interesting thing. I've never been too religious and I'm not gonna make it about religion or anything. I will say things have been happening the past couple of years that are just strange. They're just strange, like at the precisely the right time, precisely the right thing. And I just think in my head, it's more probable than not that this is some sort of something, right? Guiding me towards the right direction. So that's all I'll say it is. But it just felt divine. I was like, this is too like perfect, to just be random in a sense, to end up for a lot of things that have happened over the past 2 years.
So business and life is a little bit better when you've got that extra juice, isn't it?
Exactly. It
So
is.
are you doing anything to try to grow that part of your life?
Yeah, I'm super into the whole mindset thing. So I've been meditating. COVID really changed my life because COVID kept me in. That's when I started reading. I've turned into this like voracious reader, always trying to read and learn and do all these things. But I started meditating in COVID because I started studying successful people like Ray Dalio, who's a big hedge fund investor, and all these different people. And a lot of times what I'll do when I'm either learning information or going into a new industry, things that are the same, like multiple people say the same thing, I really cue in on that. I'm like, okay, this must be important because 6 different people, they all have different viewpoints, but they're all doing the same thing, right? And that same thing was meditating. They're all like meditating, doing this thing. All right, so it must be important because all these successful people are doing it. So I started to do it then, and for me, it's just like 15 minutes in the morning, in the evening. It's I think the word meditation means to become familiar with, right? So you're really just kind of letting your thoughts come in and analyzing those. And I like to look at it as like clearing my mental email inbox, right? And just kind of opening all those thoughts and really evaluating where you are, because super important to self-reflect. Like you should be reflecting on where you are, where you're at in your life, right? If you're unhappy, it's probably because you've done no self-reflection. Okay, I am where I am because of what reason? Well, it's because of this, this, and this. Well, I don't like this part about me, right? So you can kind of analyze what you need to change to really feel kind of fulfilled and happy in a sense.
I agree, 100%. And meditation, I've resisted it for so long because I'm like, I don't know how to do it. I just sit here and then all these other thoughts kind of creep in. I can't clear my mind when in fact meditation isn't really thinking about anything or trying to think about anything. It's just, being present in the moment, and giving yourself the time and space and margin just to be able to breathe and just sit for a minute and to let those things flow through. You're absolutely right. Well, good job doing that. That's super helpful. So did you finish school or did you get so
Mhm.
excited and successful that you just jumped into your real estate career?
Now, I'm a pretty risk averse person, to be honest,
Okay.
which is interesting why you choose entrepreneurship, right? Yeah, I was like definitely finishing school because I was like, all right, I'm going to have this in my back pocket, right? And I'm already all the way here. By the time I dropped accounting, I had that accounting internship going into senior year, and then I dropped it, like I'm going all in on real estate. But I was going to finish because I only did like 2 classes this semester. I had like no credits left, so I was like, I'm just going to take these 2 classes each semester and just rip real estate, right? And do the calls.
Well, congrats on finishing that. I actually did a podcast with a guy really early in my career. He was actually kicked out of college. It's one of the first podcasts that we did, and he's like, "I'm kicked out of college, so I'm just going to go try real estate." And so that's what he's doing. And he didn't want to finish. And I told him, I said, you're going to get to the point where you're going to want to raise private money from somebody someday, and you've got to have some kind of credential or some kind of completion. Maybe this is kind of the old Gen Xer in me, trained by baby boomers, which is like, yeah, go to college, which I'm not sure I really believe in anymore, but I am a believer in finishing what you've started, because so at least you get the honor and the credit for all of the time, money, and effort that you've spent. And the completion of that, I think, does help in a variety of different ways. Like I have a degree in theater, and I used it for the first 10 years of my life after I graduated. I was in shows. I went all around the country. I worked as a paid actor. I supported myself at that until I realized that the only other thing I had passion for was real estate, and I was tired of being unemployed. So that's when I started investing in real estate and literally made more off of one property in 6 months than I did 2 years, humping it out there as an actor, going from town to town, show to show. So it's really life changing when you commit to it, and it's easy to jump to the next thing. So congrats on completing that and then going for it. I think it'll definitely give you a boost. And also, that finance career has got to be helpful in this
Hmm.
business.
I always used to kind of poo-poo the whole college thing because that's all they do in entrepreneurship. They just destroy college, how it's so bad for you. But I think it was great. One, for the relationships. I always look at it like, hey, I never would have met my business partner if I didn't go to college. So the cost of college was essentially getting to where I am at this point, right? For one. Also, all the relationships. And it's also interesting what I've realized lately, even small things like being able to write. I'm writing a lot of emails, right? And there's a certain level of professionalism that we carry, both Isaiah and I, because we had gone through that kind of higher education, and definitely our better understanding of the markets and finance and the whole finance world, right? Because we'll get into raising private capital at some point. And then with multifamily, it's all market related, but we have a really good understanding of all that because of our finance degrees. So I think it's definitely going to contribute. And I didn't even think about the fact of having that credential with raising private money. Because I think it
Absolutely.
definitely probably does play a factor. Like, oh, he actually went to college, graduated in finance. Okay, probably subconsciously, they're probably, okay, he probably actually knows what he's talking about.
Yeah, I mean, my degree has helped me with presentations. I introduced more people to the short-term rental sub-asset class by doing presentations. Started out doing them for 2 people at a time, and then 200 people at a time. And then next thing I know, I'm building a nationwide brokerage training real estate agents because the sub asset class is like taking off. You know, people are getting 30-40% returns year over year by finding the right properties. We were helping them find the right properties, helping them grow their portfolios. We got agents from waiters to the point where they're, you know, making $1 million in gross commission income, and investors who had never invested in a house before 5 years later are now doing developments. You know, it's been a really fun ride, and you just don't know how explosive it can be, or how the reasons why, you know, I believe God has us at a place right now that we don't really quite understand takes us to a place 10 years later where you're like, wow, there really was a grand design there. And I'm so thankful for it. So I would encourage you to just definitely keep an eye on those meaningful monoliths, those meaningful monoliths that show up in your life. Don't ever forget them, and because they'll all show up again in a really cool way, it seems like. And I think you have a kind of a philosophy like that, because in getting to know you a little bit, it seems like you say you have a philosophy about maybe the first time you meet somebody, you may not really realize how important they are to you, but then people kind of have a way of coming back. Talk about that
Mhm.
philosophy that you shared a little bit.
Yeah, I think that's just in relationships, right? We're so geared to just want instant gratification on things, right? Instant results. Okay, I spent X amount of marketing. I want the deal right away. It's not like that with relationships. And I think my philosophy on building relationships has evolved. But so I've started to see people that I've met maybe 6 months ago, 8 months ago, a year ago, 2 years ago. They come back in to my life to, not to say that I made the relationship just to for my eventual benefit down the line, but I'm seeing the benefit now come around like so much longer down the line, right? So it's almost like planting seeds. It's almost like you're a farmer, right? And you got to cultivate those relationships and do the things. And but I think a good perspective to have when building relationships is just to go out and try to provide value. How can I go out and help this person along their journey? Let me listen, understand where they're at. What can I do to provide value to them, right? Because there's a book called The Go Giver, which I highly recommend everyone reading. But it's just kind of a universal law of like give and you shall receive, right? So give, 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 and it'll come back around at some point.
Yeah, absolutely. You reap what you sow is, you know, how I say it, and it's absolutely true in my life as well. So that's cool. That's a great philosophy. I'm glad
Yeah,
that's
it
serving you.
served me
Uh,
very well. And I think relationships are everything in life and in business, and even connecting with people who don't seem like they're in your industry. Maybe they don't seem like they're the best connection for you, but going out and going for coffee or even having a phone call with them, right? Spending 10, 15 minutes, you never know how that's going to affect them, right? Like, oh, he took 10, 15 minutes out of his day to talk to me. And then maybe they think of you down the line for whatever reason, but you never know how they may work into your life.
Absolutely. Do you go out and seek out mentors as well?
I'm all about that. I'm very active, like I said, how I found you on LinkedIn, trying to build my network. I think that's everything. Because I mean, you're only one conversation away from changing your life, wherever you are. Whether you're trying to get into the business or just trying to make your first phone call, or you've hit a ceiling in your business, you're literally one conversation away from someone. You could be from $1 million. Someone you could make $1 million to someone, right? If money was your ultimate goal, right? So you're one conversation away. That's what I like to think. Ed Milet has a really good book called One More. I just talked about that. You're one more dial, one more phone call, one more rep in the gym, right? Just that one more mentality because you never know what that one more will bring.
And being excited about it, you know, having that ambition to just, rather than the fatigue, you know, because I know we've all seen this, you know, the Tony Robbins, it's like 4 blocks. And one of them is you've got this belief, right, that you can do something, and that changes your potential. And then that changes your actions, and then that changes your results, and your results change your belief, you know. So people that aren't getting the results that they want for whatever reason have an easier time getting on this downward spiral. But if you really focus on believing that you can do it, that increases your potential, and that increases the actions that you take, which increases your results. And it's just this upward spiral. So sometimes we have to force ourselves like into that upward spiral because, you know, it can be negative with the same thing. How do you keep yourself in that positive rocket fuel mindset?
Community. It's got to be the people around you. I mean, I struggle with the negative thoughts every single day. That's a fact. I think everyone does, right? You always have those limiting thoughts that creep in, but it's like, how am I going to handle them? It's not how do I eliminate them? How do I handle them? Right? When I was playing hockey, I was a goalie. One of the biggest misconceptions I had back then, which would have helped me, is understanding it's normal to feel nervous, right? This is okay. It means that you care and you want to do well. But how do
Exactly.
you,
I just told my son that recently in his wrestling match. I used to feel the same thing. I was a goalie in water polo when I was in high
love it.
school. Keep going, keep going. I love it.
No, it's good. But if I would have known, like, hey, this is normal. This is never going to go away. I was trying to fight it. I was trying to be like, how can I make these nerves go away? Like, why is this happening to me? But instead, I should have just been like, okay, I'm going to get these butterflies every single time I'm about to step on the ice. Just accept that, right? This is a normal feeling. Now let's be a little bit more clear up in our mind to be like, okay, this is a normal feeling. Kind of reframe that. This is normal. I'm going to go out. It's going to go away once we start playing, right? So I think with mindsets, that's the first thing. But then also being around in a community, that is the biggest freaking thing, is being in a community, especially for younger entrepreneurs in their 20s, or even maybe out of high school. They don't want to go to college, right? You have influences in your life like parents, things like that, other friends who are on their path, right? And they're going to be, hey, go get a real job. What are you doing? It hasn't worked for 3 months. Hey, Johnny, this isn't working. Let's go get a job. It's time to get a job. That is strong, right? And these are people that care about you and love you, and they definitely do want what's best for you, but they don't always know what's best for you, right? Because they're only operating their life based upon their previous experience and beliefs, right? So they might not be as open-minded as would be beneficial for you. But I think being around the community kind of substitutes for that. So if you're around people who are also wholesaling, getting cussed out on the phone every day and going through these struggles, like, hey man, yeah, I went through that struggle a couple months ago, know exactly what you're going through. This is how I got through it, right? And then you don't feel like you're on an island, because you absolutely do feel like you're on an island when you're building this thing, right? Like, I work from home. So I'm here tiling people all day. It's not like I have a coworker to go complain about things to and be like, oh man, this sucks. It's just me, right? I do have my partner, but business partner. But I think the community is the biggest thing that's going to help people get over whatever hump they need to get over, because you absolutely will run into obstacles and you absolutely will have humps.
Do you feel the need to vent sometimes, or do you feel the need to maybe just kind of keep things positive all the time? Like, what's your philosophy in that? Because I know some people, like, they don't want any negativity to creep in, so they don't allow themselves to vent. But some people are like,
Mm-hmm.
nah, you got to blow off steam. What do you think about that, all that?
Yeah, I think you can do both. Whatever at the end of the day, it's whatever works for you, right? Everyone's out here teaching these different philosophies and all these things. That's what works best for them, right? We're all different people. So it's going to
Hmm.
be a little bit different for everyone. So I think whatever helps you the best. For me, I don't really vent. I don't think. I more just kind of get in my own head. So I try to stay out of my own head. Instead of venting, I'll just like, when I curl up and just be like, oh gosh, what am I doing? Have all these thoughts. So I try not to do that. So I will keep positive, maybe go for a walk, try to do something to reset. If I catch myself in that kind of thought process, hey, reset.
Well, you definitely have a lot of wisdom. Some things you just said there really tie into another podcast that I did recently with one of my mentors named Darren Jacklin. I would strongly encourage you to grab that podcast and take a listen, because what he says, it aligns exactly with what you said, in that your environment is stronger than your willpower. So that community of people is very, very essential. And you're doing this. You're helping with this. You're helping create a community for real estate investors, aren't you? It's a optimize REI.
Optimize REI. I'm
Yeah, talk about
obsessed with
that.
optimization just for myself, right? In my health, my mindset, my relationships, real estate. So I said, what better name than Optimize REI? But yeah, right now it's kind of like my give back to the community. I've been doing this for the past few years. And at first I didn't want to do it. I was like, oh, who am I to go do this? Build the community. Like, what have I even done? But that's kind of always the imposter syndrome in all of us. But you look back and you're like, hey man, I've actually had some pretty decent strides. So this is a Facebook group that I have for now. It's a free Facebook group. But I am every Saturday, I'm calling sellers live. So people who are looking to get into the business, or even who have done a handful of deals, can come in, see how I talk to sellers. I call other people's sellers. We're doing sales role plays. I'm comping properties, which is like trying to determine the value, the after repair value. So anything I can do to help and kind of get people in there. So it's almost like a no excuses, right? No excuses. Oh, I want to start, but I don't know how. Great. Hop in the Facebook group, join the Zoom, right? Oh, I just don't know how to do this or that. Well, great. We'll show you, right? So that's kind of the philosophy behind it.
So it's allowing you to just connect with people and share some wisdom, and probably you share some deals in that community as well.
Oh yeah, 100%. My thing is like, let's do more deals. I want to do more deals. I want you to do more deals. I want us to do more deals. And I think the best way to get started is to team up, or what we call squad up, right? We should squad up with other people, because there's so many moving parts in, say, a wholesale transaction, for example, right? Okay, what list do I pull? How do I get the list? Where are the numbers? How do I call the seller? What happens when the seller says, yes, I want to sell? What do I say? Right? How do I lock it up? How do I put it under contract? How do I sell the deal? So many moving parts. Why don't you just go generate leads at first, right? Get your hands on a transaction so you can get some experience, and then you can go out and do the thing yourself, right? Because competence is our one of our mentors, Axel, always says is competence breeds confidence, right? So your understanding of the situation is going to make you more confident. So if you can go in a low risk environment and just generate leads, right? But the other person who's doing the deal with you is willing to share the journey of the deal with you, so you can kind of understand. That way, you'll get some experience under your belt without having to have all this anxiety of like, oh, what do I do once it's under contract? I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's see. It seems like you're in the middle of working some deals now. You've done really really well. It seems like you've got like you said like 18 deals producing over 300K per year. Your goal is to get to seven figures in 2024. So talk to us about where you're at now and where you want to get to, and what you're focusing on.
Yeah, so this fourth quarter has been crazy, and it's really wild to see what you can do in a year. So after college, I didn't share this, but after college, we were still kind of doing realtor thing and all these routes. I was a bar back for 7 months, so I would work from 9 to 5 real
Not
estate, then
even
I
a
go bar
bartender.
back.
You had to go get
Not even
ice.
a
You had to
tender. I
wash
was getting
dishes and all
ice,
that.
washing dishes.
I've done that.
Exactly.
Yeah, I've done that.
It was brutal. It's not a nice enough place so that like the money was able to cover my rent, thankfully. But I did that for a while, and I quit that back in October of last year, right? So about 14 months ago, and that's when we went full time. But in 14 months, uh, I was so cold calling at that time, and we scaled up to 3 lead generators, lead follow-up manager, about to have an acquisitions manager. But this year, at the time of the writing, it was 18 deals. Now I think it's up to like 25, like 23 to 25 deals. And assigned to a buyer, I think we have about 350 or 360 in projected revenue. So yeah, just consistent action for a year, you'd be absolutely blown away with what you could accomplish. And anyone can do that. Anyone who's willing to sit down and make calls every day can do exactly that. So it's not that I'm special or anything, just the reps too, because I had been cold calling for a while. So I'd say I've probably spoken with over 30,000 sellers and said, hey, would you consider an offer on your property? Right. So it's just through sheer reps. There's no shortcut to anything. It's just you do it enough. Competence breeds confidence. Right.
So out of
Um,
30,000 sellers, how many of those said, "Yeah, I'll do something"?
Not a lot. Not a lot, Jeremy.
Maybe 30?
This is good. This is good numbers for people to understand. I was speaking
Yeah.
with someone who's getting started the other day, and he was like, hey man, like, so what are like the numbers? Like, how many people do I have to call? All those things. So it depends if you're going outbound or inbound, right? If you're outbound, calling and texting, the conversion rate is lower, right? Because you're reaching out to them. They could be anywhere on their timeline versus someone calling in, they're ready to sell. Typically, if you dial 100 numbers, you're going to speak with 8 to 10 people. So say 10 people, it's a 10% connection rate. That's really high. And of those 10 people you talk to, maybe you get one lead, right? So 100 dials to a lead. Now, if it's an industry average is about 30 leads to a contract. So if you have to get 30 leads to get a contract, 100 times 30 is 3,000, right? So you got to make 3,000 dials to get one contract, right? And people are out here, yeah, I made $50. I didn't get a deal. Like 50 dials. I'm like, hey, listen, great job for taking action. You should continue to do that. Be consistent. Not even a drop in the bucket. You got to get out
Wow.
there and dial way more, right? So people just vastly underestimate the amount of work you need to do to get the deal, right? Hey man, I've
The
been
amount
calling
of
for three.
hustle, right?
Yeah,
Nobody wants to
exactly.
hustle. They want the money, but they
No,
don't want the hustle.
yeah. Well, the problem is people are flashing their checks on Instagram and it's like, yo, look, I just made 50 grand wholesaling. And then, but it's like, okay, well, because my deal, I had to call for three. And this is the biggest mindset shift too, is I called for 3 straight months without getting a dollar before I got my first deal. 3 months, every single day. Imagine that every single day, 3 to 4 hours a day. I would sit down on a triple line dialer, dialing 3 numbers at once, and I would try to get 50 conversations, right? That dialer was probably dialing 600 to 800 dials within that period.
What happens if
Every
two
single day.
people answer at once?
Yeah, everyone asks that. So I don't think it happens too often, but it just
Yeah.
puts the other person on hold and they end up hanging up.
Oh,
But
okay. Then you call
essentially,
them back.
the effectiveness of dialing three outweighs any time that you would get a double answer, you know?
That's cool. That way you're burning through numbers faster.
Yeah.
Was that an expensive bit of service to get?
No, I think it's one of the most, I mean, a lot of people get started in cold calling because it's the most cost effective.
Hmm.
The best lead generation source is going to be pay per click, which is Google ads, right? That's people online searching, hey, I got to sell my house fast right now for
Right.
cash. But cold calling is not too expensive because you can hop on a triple line dollar for a couple $100 a month, $100, maybe $200 a month. And then you just got to get records. So say you have 1,000 records you want to call, property addresses. You got to go get numbers for those. So you
Right.
could free skip trace them, but I'd recommend just using like batch skip tracing or dataskip.io. Those are two really good ones for us. And you pay anywhere from 10 to 15 cents a record. So for 1,000 records, you might pay 100 to $150. But I highly recommend if you're going to pull a list, just pay for the skip tracing. Like, yes, you could get it for free, but how much time are you going to waste with all these bad phone numbers, not the right owner? It's not even worth it. Just pay a couple $100, get some good phone numbers and go out there and make some dials.
So it seems like you've got a philosophy. Maybe this ties in with your philosophy about the difference between getting rich and getting wealthy.
Mm,
So talk to us about that. You've got some cool philosophies surrounding that. I think you
mm.
said like getting rich is about having a cash flow business, getting wealthy is about owning assets.
Yeah, so I think one of the biggest things that people get from Rich Dad Poor Dad's great. It gives us the concept about real estate, but doesn't tell us necessarily how to go do it. And there's kind of this not misconception. This is definitely a way to do it. Okay, let's go slowly build up rentals until we're financially free. Our cash flow covers our living expenses, right? Well, if you own real estate, you realize that that's kind of tough to do because you have to put away money for repairs, right? Say the roof goes out. Well, there's 3 years of cash flow right there. You know what I mean? So it's really hard to do that. What's better and kind of the philosophy we're doing now is let's get rich first, right? So let's build a cash flowing business, which is this wholesaling business. Let's get out of it. And then once it's automated, it's going to be kicking off so much cash flow. And I kind of already starting to do that point where we're going to get whacked with taxes, right? That's when we go buy real estate. I heard someone else the other day say, I'm not buying real estate until my accountant says you need to buy real estate, right? For the tax reasons. So I think it's important. You're going to get there so much faster if you build a business, a cash flowing business that's going to kick off 500, 700, $800,000 a year in cash flow, right? And then at that point, you can scale up a lot faster if scaling is your goal, right? That's not everyone's goal. Maybe they just do want to slowly accumulate rentals and that's the best situation for them because of their job and all that. That's fine. I'm just saying for the fastest way to scale your portfolio, it's create a business first, take that cash flow and get wealthy, right?
Yeah, if you've got recurring monthly revenue, people will invest in what you've got. You know, if you just go and you sell assets, like that's what I learned about flipping is it's just a job in and of itself because you've got to constantly go find more revenue, go find more opportunities. Yeah, it's bigger money and bigger chunks, but it's still a job, except you're the one having to go find the recurring revenue. I think most real estate investors, once they really get into it, are like, nah, I think I want to hold these assets and make sure they spin off, great returns. And then selling an asset is, comes with tax issues. So, buy and hold isn't such a bad thing. You can really create legacy for yourself and for your posterity. What's your end game? If you make 100 million at this, what are you going to do with it?
Good question. It's really tough to set goals more than 3 years out, in my opinion. Like when you think about a year ago, I had no idea I'd be in the position I am right now. Only 1 year ago. Imagine 3 years from now, you have no freaking clue where you're going to be. Um, so $100 million, though, I think it's going to be tough. I think the end game is get out of this business, build the multifamily portfolio. But I almost feel like I'm going to be doing something, maybe not necessarily real estate related, but I don't know if it's like coaching or teaching people. I like to speak and do those things. So helping people out. I don't know if it's maybe with mindset but for now, automate this business, go build a multifamily portfolio. I know those are two things we definitely want to be doing.
Fantastic. Anything else you want to share with people? Any nuggets or any personal story? Anything that's left unsaid that you want to be sure you get out there?
I'd say the biggest thing, just keep going, just show up. I mean, I think half the battle, even more than that, is just showing up, right? Whether you're going to the gym, right? Like last week, I did not want to go to the gym every morning. And I was like, you know what? Let me just show up and do a couple sets of whatever, right? But then you get there and you end up doing more because you're already there, right? Same thing with dialing. Just show up, just sit down and do the work. Stephen Pressfield has a book called The Art of War or The War of Art, one of those titles, but it talks about a force called resistance, right? And he's a writer. And he said the hardest part about writing is not writing, it's sitting down to write. That's the hardest part because you have this resistance. Oh, I don't want to do it. As soon as you sit down and start typing, melts away like butter and you're going, right? And I feel that in my every day with calling as well, right? Oh, I don't want to make the calls, right? Such a resistance. And a lot of people I think don't go because they feel that I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it. But as soon as you make your first call, you get off that first call, everything opens up and you're feeling great for the rest of the day. So I think just showing up with the mindset of like, hey, let me just do 3 dials. Because I can guarantee you, you sit down, you open up your computer, your dialer, your CRM, and you make 3 dials. I'll just make 2 more dials, right? You'll always do more than you think you will because you've done all the effort to turn your computer on and do all the things. So just set the bar low for yourself. No one says that. Set the bar low just to get in there and do it, and you'll end up doing more. But just
Yeah,
show up.
absolutely. Confidence breeds confidence, right?
Yep.
So set the bar low, get yourself in a state of confidence, and then push it a little bit more. I just bought a little shower timer because I wanted to start doing cold showers,
Mm.
and I didn't just want to jump in there and just go for it and just test myself. I wanted to measure it. So I put it in there, and today was my first day. And actually, I went from a sauna to a shower, and I'm doing this because what I'm realizing from staying close to some of my new mentors now is that your daily habits, especially your morning habits, are going to set off a domino effect for the rest of your day. So if I don't want to jump in a cold shower, I'm probably not going to want to do those first 5 cold calls of the day and probably have a nasty attitude about it. So I jumped in there just from being hot in that sauna, and I turned it all the way cold. And I set it for a minute, and I'm like, I just want the timer to go off. I just want that timer to go off. And I'm in there and I'm brushing my teeth, trying to distract myself. And I'm also trying to think of the things that I don't want to do because that's what samurai used to do. They used to
Mhm.
strip naked to simulate the feeling of vulnerability, the same vulnerability that you would have in war. And then they would take their sword and they would get under a cold, ice cold waterfall, and they would visualize themselves in battle so that their body was already time tested and ready for what they were about to do. So there was no shock. They didn't experience any shock. They were used to that adrenaline rush. And so that's what I'm trying to do. And I was waiting for the timer to go off, and it didn't go off. I had to stop, but I had 17 seconds left. But now I have something to shoot for the next time I get in
Mhm.
there. And what gets measured gets done. So I'm about measuring some of the things in my life and moving those benchmarks along. And like you said, though, sometimes just showing up and not even knowing why and just trudging through the mud, even though it feels like you're trudging through the mud, just putting one foot in front of the other, giving yourself little small things to look forward to, like at the end of the day, like, hey, at the end of this day, I'm going to do this just to kind of reward myself. It really helps a lot. My wife in 2008 tried to get me to quit real estate because I just kept showing up with no results, right? Because the market was horrible. I mean, we were in a market with no inventory. Try being in a market with no buyers, and even if you had a buyer, no bank would give that buyer a loan. So it was really dire straits back then. In 2008, I closed 4 real estate deals, and I had to feed my family off of that. So you learn
Mhm.
how to get real creative real fast. And she's like, "Why don't you just go get a job?" Well, aside from the fact that I'm psychologically unemployable, I could never work for anybody the rest of my life ever. I just believed that I was on the right path. It just felt right, even though I wasn't really seeing the results, because sometimes we have to walk by faith, not by sight. And when we do that, especially if we're believing in the reason why we're doing something, or we're doing it for a higher reason, or it really helps if we feel like we've got that divine power that you were talking about, tapping into that and being pulled towards your goal rather than pushing yourself towards it is a very, very wonderful thing. You're a wise dude, and I'm glad you reached out. I'm really glad to get to know you. You are really smart, and I love your drive, and I'd like to stay in touch with you, and I'd like to be able to help you if I can in any way.
I appreciate it. I really do appreciate you having me on. And yeah, I always love connecting with people who have similar perspectives as me and similar goals and aspirations. And it's a big thing in my life that I'm trying to do now is that's what was so great about moving down to St. Petersburg is like I could like reinvent myself, because I am not the same person I was when I was a freshman in college, right? So I've evolved over the past 5, 6 years. And now I can just kind of go plant myself somewhere else. And then everyone will know me as the person I am now, right? I won't have these old friends sucking me back into wanting to do X, Y, or Z that I don't want to do anymore. I can go kind of create that new group of friends. And like I said, that community, it's all about the community.
Yeah,
But it's
absolutely.
been awesome.
What can we do
Appreciate
to
it.
help you? What do you
Let's
need?
just squad up. Let's squad up. Let's do some deals together.
Yeah,
I want to help you. If you no excuses, right? And this is what I say about community. It doesn't have to be my community, right? I just want you to get in a community, right? Why did I create my community? At first, I told you I didn't want to be loud on social media and do all these things. I was like imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this? But then I had this realization, again, divine realization, but I was like, everyone has a unique style of teaching and explaining things, right? So certain people are going to resonate with you, Jeremy, that will not resonate with me. They will not want to come to my community or do business with me, but they'll want to do business with you, which is great. That's awesome. That's why you have a podcast. You're doing all these things. And likewise, certain people will resonate with me, may not necessarily resonate with you. And it's like that for everyone. So I think everyone should be getting loud and trying to build communities and going on social media, because there's certain people out there that are going to resonate with them that will not resonate with other people. So if I'm the one that you resonate with, great. It's a free Facebook group, so there's no excuses about it. Go in there. If you don't resonate with me, awesome, but just go find something to hold you accountable.
Well, I resonate with you, so I'll go in there and I'll join Optimize REI, and I'm looking forward to that. And also, I'm down in Tampa about 4 or 5 times a year for business all the time, which isn't too far away from St. Pete. So I'll reach out to you and have Beth get your cell number, and we'll squat up when we're down there sometime. Sound good?
We will. We'll squat up. Sounds good, Jeremy. Thank you.
Okay. All right. We'll see you. Well, a big thank you for listening to the end of our podcast. I know your time is valuable, and I hope you got a few takeaways that are going to help you get a greater return on that time. I know you will. And if you did enjoy it, I'd sure appreciate a share or a comment. Feel free to subscribe for instant access to new episodes and offers. There's also a ton of free content and ways to learn more and engage more at WorleyRealEstateNetwork.com. Until then, we'll continue to bring you recipes for success and real stories from real people who, like you, are living out your divine purpose. And hey, God loves you. No matter what happens, don't give up.